Hello, dear YouTube viewers, I hope you're doing well. Okays, let's start our video. Ryan and Ella sat together in their softly lit living room, the evening quiet except for the sound of an old vacation video playing on the TV. The glow of the screen flickered across their faces, and the half-finished bottle of wine on the table gave the moment a sense of comfort and routine. Ella laughed suddenly as a clip showed one of her friends making a fool of himself during a bachelor trip in Vegas. "Vegas changes people," she said with a teasing grin, her eyes sparkling. Ryan laughed along, unaware of the hidden edge in her tone. She swirled her wine and added, "Imagine if I went to Vegas with the girls. No rules for one weekend." She said it playfully, but her laughter came out sharper than usual, the kind that hides something behind it. Ryan smiled faintly, matching her energy, but deep inside, something in her words unsettled him. He brushed it off, thinking it was just a joke. But somewhere, a quiet doubt began to form, small, invisible, but real. Later that night, Ella headed to bed, humming softly as she disappeared down the hallway. Ryan stayed behind, letting the silence settle around him. The TV was off now, and the only light came from the dim lamp beside the couch. He leaned back, lost in thought, when a soft vibration broke the stillness. Her phone lit up on the coffee table. The name Mike appeared on the screen, followed by a message. "Still can't believe that weekend happened." Ryan's body stiffened. He wasn't trying to look, but the message glowed bright enough to burn into his mind. The name felt familiar. Mike, the coworker Ella had mentioned once, in passing, with little significance. His heart began to thump softly, a rhythm of disbelief and suspicion. He didn't touch the phone, didn't scroll, didn't open it. He just sat there, staring at the screen as the light faded back into darkness. The laughter from earlier suddenly replayed in his mind, the Vegas joke, the teasing tone, and this time, it didn't sound funny at all. His thoughts drifted backward to when she was preparing for that Vegas trip. He remembered her excitement, her energy as she packed with her friends, saying, "Just a girls' trip, nothing wild." He remembered the way she hugged him at the airport, quick but affectionate, assuring him it would just be a few days of fun. He had smiled, trusting her completely. But now, that trust felt fragile. In his mind, fragments of that trip replayed like a film, flashing lights, casino tables, music echoing in the background, Ella laughing with her friends, champagne glasses clinking. Among them, a man's face appeared, blurred, almost hidden, but too close to her, too comfortable.
Mike.
The shadow lingered in Ryan's imagination as her voice echoed faintly in his memory. It was harmless fun. The next morning, sunlight streamed through the kitchen window. The scent of coffee filled the room as Ella moved around, cheerful and carefree, humming to herself. Ryan sat at the table, pretending to scroll through his phone, his expression calm but distant. He watched her talk about work, about how her team was crazy busy this week. He decided to test the waters. "So," he said casually, "how's that guy from your office, Mike, right?" She froze just for a second. It was quick, almost invisible, but Ryan noticed it. "Mike? Oh, he's fine." "Why?" she said, her tone light but her eyes uncertain. "Just wondering," he replied smoothly, forcing a small smile. The conversation hung there, fragile and loaded. She looked at him for a moment longer, then turned back to her coffee. He watched her shoulders tense ever so slightly. Neither of them spoke after that. The silence in the kitchen was heavy, not awkward, but electric, charged with all the words they weren't saying. Ryan knew then that something had shifted. He didn't have proof, not yet, but the air between them had changed. The joke from last night wasn't funny anymore. It was a crack in the foundation, and he could already feel it spreading. The days that followed felt different, not dramatically, but in quiet, unsettling ways that only someone in love would notice. Ella had started keeping her phone closer than usual. It never left her hand now, even when she moved around the apartment. Whenever it buzzed, she would glance at the screen quickly, tilting it slightly away from Ryan before replying. Once or twice, he noticed her smiling faintly at something she read, then locking the screen almost immediately. Her eyes no longer met his the same way. Conversations felt shorter, lighter, almost rehearsed. When he asked about her day, She gave vague answers, just meetings or crazy busy. The words were harmless on their own, but her tone lacked warmth. And when she said she had to stay late at work, her explanation came too easily, too fast, like she had practiced it. Ryan tried to push the thoughts away. He didn't want to become paranoid, didn't want to become the kind of man who doubted the person he loved. But the more he tried to ignore it, the louder his instincts screamed at him. Every little inconsistency, every unexplained silence, every flicker of guilt in her eyes, they all pointed in the same direction. The message from Mike had started the storm, but now, her behavior was confirming what he feared. He would lie awake at night beside her, listening to her breathing. Sometimes she turned away, clutching her phone under the pillow. He wanted to ask her, to confront it, but something inside him held back. Maybe it was fear. Maybe he wasn't ready for the answer he already knew. A few days later, Ryan met Liam at their usual cafe, a quiet corner spot that had been their place since college. Liam noticed the tension in Ryan's face before he said a word. "You look like you haven't slept," Liam said, stirring his coffee. Ryan hesitated, running a hand over his jaw. "I think she's hiding something." Liam leaned back, expression serious. "Ella?" Ryan nodded. "She's been different lately. Secretive. She jokes around, but it's like there's something behind it. Something she's not saying." Liam stayed silent for a moment, weighing his words. "You sure? Sometimes we see ghosts that aren't there." Ryan stared down at his cup, voice low. "She joked about Vegas the other night." "Vegas?" Liam asked. "Yeah," Ryan said. Like it was nothing. But she laughed too hard, like she was trying to cover something. Liam sighed. People joke about things they're guilty of. It's a weird human reflex, trying to make light of what eats them up inside. The words hit Ryan deeper than Liam realized. He sat there quietly, staring into his coffee as if it could offer answers. That one sentence, "People joke about things they're guilty of," echoed in his head for the rest of the day. By the time he went home, it had planted a certainty he couldn't shake. Later that night, Ryan was putting laundry away while Ella was in the shower. Her jacket was on the back of a chair, and when he lifted it to hang it, something slipped out of the pocket, a small, folded piece of paper. He picked it up, unfolded it, and froze. It was a receipt from the Mirage Hotel, Las Vegas. 2 guests, 1 room. The date matched her trip exactly. His stomach dropped. The room around him suddenly felt too quiet, the hum of the washing machine in the distance barely audible over the pounding of his heart. He sat down on the edge of the bed, staring at the paper in his hand. The details blurred as his mind raced back to everything, the laughter over old videos, her joke about no rules for one weekend, the message from Mike that he hadn't meant to see. Every moment lined up perfectly now, forming a picture he didn't want to believe but couldn't deny. He folded the receipt carefully and placed it on the nightstand. When Ella came out of the shower, wrapped in a towel, she smiled briefly, asking something about dinner. Ryan only nodded. His voice wouldn't come out. She didn't notice the receipt sitting there in plain sight, and he didn't point it out. For the next few days, the apartment felt colder, quieter. The same rooms that once echoed with laughter now seemed hollow. Ryan barely spoke. When he did, his words were soft, short, and distant. Ella sensed something was wrong. She could feel his absence even when he was sitting right beside her. "You've been off lately," she said one evening, trying to sound casual. "Everything okay?" He looked up at her for a long moment, his expression unreadable. "Just tired," he said finally. She nodded, pretending to accept it, but her eyes lingered on him. He turned away before she could see the pain behind his calm. Underneath his quiet composure, something was breaking, not loudly, but deeply. It was the kind of heartbreak that didn't explode in anger or tears. It just sank, slowly and heavily, until it filled every corner of him. The trust he had once built so carefully was beginning to crumble, piece by piece, and neither of them said a word to stop it. Friday night arrived with the kind of calm that hides chaos underneath. Ella had gone out of her way to make things feel normal again. The table was set with candles flickering gently, soft jazz playing from the speaker, the faint scent of rosemary and garlic filling the air. She looked radiant, dressed in a dark green dress Ryan had once said was his favorite. When Ryan came home, she greeted him with a smile that almost felt real. "Surprise," she said brightly, pouring him a glass of wine. "I thought we could forget stress for a night." He hesitated before sitting down, the forced smile on his face a fragile mask. "Sure," he said quietly. They ate slowly, the conversation light at first. Work, the weather, plans for the weekend. But there was a rhythm missing between them, a gap that neither laughter nor small talk could bridge. Ella tried to fill the silence, her words bouncing off his calmness like pebbles against glass. And then she said it, the thing she should have left unsaid. "Remember how jealous you were when I went to Vegas?" She joked, swirling her wine with a grin. "You probably thought I'd marry Elvis or something." She laughed, hoping he'd join in. Ryan looked up at her, eyes steady but distant. "Yeah," he said quietly. "But you came back different." The laughter faltered. "Different how?" she asked, her tone softening. He leaned back in his chair, gaze fixed on the candle between them. "Just lighter," he said. There was something in his voice, not anger, not accusation, but a quiet sadness that cut deeper than shouting ever could. She forced a smile, trying to lighten the mood. "Oh, come on," she said with a nervous laugh. "Don't tell me you think I did something wild in Vegas. You know the saying, what happens in Vegas stays in Vegas." Ryan's eyes finally met hers, calm and cold. His next words came slowly, every syllable deliberate. "Yeah," he said, except when Mike texts about it afterward. The sound of the clock ticking filled the silence that followed. Ella froze, her fork suspended midair. The smile drained from her face as her eyes darted to his, searching for any hint of a joke. There was none. What did you say?" she whispered, her voice trembling. "You heard me," Ryan said, his tone even. "Mike seems to remember Vegas better than you do." The room fell into a suffocating silence. The soft music, the flicker of candles, the smell of dinner, all of it felt wrong now, like a cruel stage set for the truth. She swallowed hard, forcing a laugh that sounded hollow. "Ryan, you're overreacting. It's not what you think." He didn't raise his voice. He didn't accuse. He just reached into his pocket and placed two things on the table, her phone and the crumpled casino receipt. The one from the Mirage Hotel. "You forgot to delete the evidence," he said quietly. Ella's eyes widened, panic flooding her face. "Ryan, it was just one night," she stammered. "I was drunk, I didn't mean for anything to happen." He looked at her, expression unreadable. "Then why lie for months?" Her breath caught. Tears began to fill her eyes. "Because I didn't want to lose you." Ryan's voice cracked just slightly when he replied. "You lost me the moment you chose him." The silence that followed was absolute. The air felt heavy, the candles trembling from the faint breeze of their shattered calm. "Please," she whispered, reaching across the table. "It was a mistake." He stood slowly, pushing back his chair. His hands were trembling, but his voice had turned to steel. "A mistake is forgetting your keys, Ella," he said. "This was a decision." She began to cry, her voice breaking apart. "Ryan, please don't do this. Don't walk away. We can fix this, I swear." He shook his head, looking down at her one last time. The pain in his eyes wasn't anger anymore, it was finality. "Vegas was your secret," he said softly. "But tonight is my goodbye." He turned and walked toward the door. "Ryan," she cried out, voice echoing through the room. "Please don't do this." He paused for just a moment, his hand on the doorknob. Without turning around, he said quietly, "You did it first." The door clicked shut behind him, leaving Ella standing in the flickering candlelight, surrounded by the dinner she made to erase her guilt, and the silence she had created herself. The sound of his footsteps faded down the hallway, replaced only by the faint crackle of a candle burning out. Ryan spends a few nights at Liam's apartment, sleeping on the couch surrounded by quiet. The silence feels heavy but strangely freeing, like breathing after holding his breath for too long. Every sound, every pause reminds him of what broke inside him. He replays their memories, the way she laughed during dinners, the text about Vegas, the way she lied without flinching. He opens his old journal, the one he hadn't touched in months, and writes, "I thought trust was unbreakable. Turns out, it's made of glass. Once it shatters, you can't step near it without bleeding. Back at the apartment, Ella sits in the stillness of what used to be home. The dinner table is exactly as they left it, burnt candles, cold plates, untouched wine. Every detail reminds her of the moment everything fell apart. She scrolls through her phone, through old photos that once carried laughter and warmth. Each smile feels like a lie now, a frozen version of a life that no longer exists. She types a message. Can we talk? No reply. Another follows. I'll tell you everything. Please. Still silence. She stares at her reflection in the window, realizing she doesn't recognize the person staring back. The guilt eats her slowly, the apartment shrinking around her like a prison made of memories. A week later, she gathers the courage to face him. She drives to Liam's place and knocks. Ryan opens the door, exhausted eyes, calm but cold. There's no trace of anger left in him, just quiet distance. She starts to speak, voice trembling. I came to say sorry. He answers, you already said it. But she shakes her head, desperate. No, you didn't hear me before. Her words tumble out like confession and collapse all at once. She tells him everything, the night in Vegas, the guilt that followed, the way she thought silence would protect what they had left. Tears blur her words. Ryan listens, arms folded, expression unreadable. When she finishes, he takes a deep breath and says, you know it hurts. You are going to keep joking about it forever. You have carried the lie like nothing happened. She can't respond. She just stands there, broken. They walk together to the park near their old apartment, the one where they used to spend Sunday evenings talking about dreams and futures. The sun is setting, painting the sky gold and pink, the same colors as their first date. The silence between them feels final, almost sacred. Ryan finally speaks, I'll always love who you were, not who you became. His words are gentle but absolute. She whispers, can we ever start over? There's a long pause before he answers. Trust doesn't reset. It rebuilds, and I'm too tired to rebuild it with you. The wind moves softly around them, carrying away what's left of their story. She nods, tears falling freely, and as he turns to leave, she whispers one last time, goodbye, Ryan. He doesn't look back. The sound of her quiet sobs fades behind him, replaced by the faint rustle of leaves, the only witness to the end of what once felt unbreakable. Months slipped by quietly, marked by small routines and a slow return to normalcy. Ryan had moved to a new city, leaving behind the apartment and memories that had become too heavy to carry. He started painting again, something he had loved long before life got complicated. The canvases became a way to release the weight of betrayal and loss, each brushstroke a fragment of emotion transformed into color and shape. His first completed piece was a heart, cracked, imperfect, yet sealed with gold. He had drawn inspiration from kintsugi, the Japanese art of repairing broken pottery with gold, turning what was broken into something beautiful. He titled the piece, The Vegas Joke. It captured all the irony, pain, and eventual acceptance of what he had endured. Weeks later, the painting was displayed in a small gallery. Visitors lingered, staring at the golden seams that held the heart together. One woman asked him softly, what does it mean? Ryan looked at her, a faint smile playing on his lips. It's about learning that laughter can hide pain, and that silence can heal it, he said. His words were simple, yet heavy with the truth of experience. Meanwhile, Ella had begun her own reckoning. She wrote him one last letter, trembling over the words, finally willing to admit everything she had tried to hide. I finally understand the joke wasn't funny. It was a confession I wasn't brave enough to make. I hope one day you find someone who laughs without guilt. Ryan read the letter once, carefully, feeling the weight of her words but no longer letting them bind him. He folded it, watched as the wind from the open window caught the paper and carried it away. There was no anger, no lingering bitterness, only a quiet sense of release. In that moment, he realized that healing wasn't about revenge or regret. It was about letting go, mending the broken pieces, and allowing himself to move forward. The city, the colors on his canvas, and the golden cracks of the heart he had painted all reminded him of this truth. Even when trust shatters, life can be pieced back together, and sometimes the beauty lies in the scars themselves. Thanks for watching. For more videos, please subscribe our channel. Awesome Visual Story.